My name is Thomas. I'm a senior account manager here at Synology, and I'll be taking you through how to unlock the full potential of your Mac. So the first thing we tend so you may be asking, okay, my Mac's pretty good. What's it missing then if it's going to unlock the full potential? Well, realistically, I don't think it's going to miss a lot, but there's only so much storage you can fit. So what I'm going to say it's missing is additional storage. Now, I'm sure most of you will start by going, okay, great, I just plug in my external SSD or external hard drive and I'm sorted. That's great for smaller storage, or if you're not that worried about that files being safe, because obviously if you lose that drive, gone. If it corrupts, gone. If it breaks, gone. Okay, so then you go, okay, well, maybe you use the cloud. Something like Dropbox, Google Drive, OneDrive, that sort of thing, but maybe it doesn't integrate all too well with Mac. You have a few sync issues. Maybe it doesn't, and then you've got that recurring monthly fee, of course. And I'm sure some of you are screaming iCloud. And sure, iCloud's okay, but it does have its limitations. You're stuck at a maximum of 2 terabytes. It will only back up your iPhone, your iPad. You, of course, still got that recurring monthly cost. Now, maybe not quite as much as some others, but there's still a recurring monthly cost. And of course, you have no control over where your data is stored. Now, you joined a Synology webinar, so I'm obviously going to tell you why Synology is better. Any NAS gives you a flexible sort of unit, sort of amount of storage available. So you got the up to 100 terabytes and more, depending on what sort of system you're looking for. You've then got backups for all platforms, so not just Mac, Windows, Linux is also available. And you're of course paying upfront, so there's no recurring monthly cost. You pay upfront, you're sorted. A lot of the packages are license free, like a good percentage of them are license free, and you have then of course full control over your data. So you're not worried about where it's stored, who's accessing it. It's all locally stored on your own hardware that you can then sort of limit access to. So let's have a look at what we're going to cover today. First, we're going to go over the Apple ecosystem. So looking at how Synology integrates seamlessly with the various Apple operating systems and hardware. We're then going to look at your own private cloud. So that'd be using Synology Drive, sort of giving you access to your files anywhere, anytime, sort of through many sort of services. And then you've got protecting your data. So we're looking at sort of why Time Machine is no longer the standard for protecting sort of your important data, your Mac, and what we're going to use as Active Backup for Business there. But of course, we'll cover that more later on. So let's start with looking at how Synology integrates with the Apple ecosystem. So how do we support the Apple ecosystem? It starts with macOS integration. So through Safari in the web browser, you can access your NAS. It works there, nice and handy. Time Machine. Now, I did say Time Machine isn't the best option, but if that is something you're looking to use, you can use a NAS as your sort of storage for your Time Machine backups. And then within Finder, you can directly integrate sort of your NAS into Finder, so you can access all your files there. Then we also have a variety of iOS apps that are available from the App Store, which we'll cover a little bit more on the next slide. And then, of course, there's going to be apps for macOS. So these are dedicated apps for the macOS environment with chat, notes, and Synology Drive, which again we'll cover more in section 2. So for our iOS and watchOS apps, we'll start with iOS. So everything you see on screen is available on iOS. You can download any of these. So things like Mail Plus and Chat, which will allow you sort of for any communications, you can set that up and have a private sort of mail server or private chat server. You've then got something like DS Cam, which will allow you to monitor your CCTV cameras. And then you have something like Synology Photos at the bottom there, which allows you to both manage and back up the photos on your phone. But there are also a few watchOS apps, which I've highlighted here. So DS Audio, obviously giving you access to control your music, should you be listening to that. DS Notes, you can actually create a note on your watch and sort of, keep track of anything that you may have thought of randomly. And then we have the option to run secure sign-in. So if you're looking to log into the NAS and you want it to be nice and secure, you can use 2FA, have the notification come up on your watch. So you don't have to sort of drag your phone out and sort of approve it there. So we talked about the various integrations with Apple, but what about managing your files on the NAS? Well, there are options to easily and securely share your files. So this either be with a friend or colleague, and this can be password protected or given a specific time range. So you can have a request, so you ask people to send you sort of files in, or you can share those folders, and you can watermark these and things like that. And then you have the ability to access the NAS from any device. So whether that be Mac, maybe you're stuck in having to use a Windows computer, for example, you can still access it the same. And this is also available, there's applications for Android and iOS, as we saw previously. And then you have the option for, well, it's centralized, right? So anything you need is then centralized, all in one place, meaning that there's no need to search through all those hard drives to find that one file. You just have it all there in one place, nice and secure. And obviously we have RAID on this, so that if anything were to happen to OneDrive, you will be covered. And all of this can then be accessed through macOS. So let's have a little look at how we do that. So it starts off with enabling the SMB file sharing option, and then so that's on DSM within Control Panel. And then we go to Connect Server via Finder, and then we can connect up and access our files within Finder. But I'm going to show you how we do this and how we do this on iPhone as well through Files. So we'll start with the Mac. Now I'm on DSM here, and as I said, we go to Control Panel. It's in File Services, and we just got to make sure that Enable SMB Service is available. It then puts a handy link at the bottom for us there. So via SMB, the name of the NAS is called Webinar, appropriate. And then we're going to go, and then we're going to connect to server. And we're going to paste that in and hit connect. And then we'll specify what folder we're looking for. So for this one, I'd like access to my home folder. So we're going to use that one. Click OK, and it really is that simple. We now have sort of local Finder access through a mapped drive to anything that I may need there. So, and then on iPhone, we have our Files app, and we open that up, and those three dots in the top right, you then have Connect to Server again, which is the dot option down. Put in our server address, so this time I'm going to use the IP address just to show the options that it can be both ways, via that link we found or via the IP. And then I just need to log in, so I put in my credentials that I have for DSM, and then I put in my password, and we click Next in the top right corner. And then it's connecting to the server, the same way as it did on Mac, just this time with iPhone. Now the iCloud sync is because I haven't opened up my files for a while. But if we go back one page, so the top left, we're going back one, you can then see that Synology server is there under shared, so 10.20.1.41, and I have access to all the files available on that NAS. Now that's great. So there's ways of accessing it both sort of on Mac and on iPhone, but this does require you to be on the same network. Now there are ways around this. So if you are out and you're trying to access it, you can access it via VPN, but not everyone has that option. So there is an alternative, and that's where we're going to talk about Synology Drive. And this is where it becomes, as you can see on screen, your own private cloud. So you might be wondering, what is Synology Drive? I don't know how familiar you are with sort of Synology products, but we have our NAS, which is quite obvious and simple. But then we have three applications that come with Drive, which is Synology Drive itself, which is the access portal that you use to accessing your files. You have the admin console, which then allows you to define certain parameters or permissions. And then there's Drive Share Sync, which allows you to sync your NAS and your NAS data with another NAS and have it constantly be in sync. Now, you might wonder how this fixes the problem. Well, it gives you these options below. So you can access Drive through a web portal, through the client on the desktop, through Drive on the mobile app, and then you obviously have a Drive Share Sync, which is then connecting on one NAS to the other. But this solves the problem by using Quick Connect. So what is Quick Connect? Well, it's a secure and simple anywhere connectivity is one way of putting it. It means that you don't need a VPN or port forwarding or DDNS. You can just go through enable Quick Connect in external access, and then just specify your Quick Connect ID. This has to be unique because this will be a link that you use, but as long as it's unique, and you hit apply, and then you get that nice link there that's next to sort of the DSM in bold, which is quickconnect.to/ and then your unique ID, in this case, Spot Webinar. So then accessing Synology Drive, this can be done through web browser, as we said, but it's just sort of giving you more of a visual. So now we're going through Quick Connect. In this example, if we're away and we're sort of on our Mac out and about, we can use that Quick Connect ID to access our drive on the browser. You'll see a variation of sort of downloaded online pin files locally if you're going through the Drive app. And of course, on your mobile, as we mentioned, there's options there too where you can see everything. But I'll show you how we do this now. So using Synology Drive on your Mac, I've already downloaded the Drive client. Now this is available from the Synology website. This isn't within the App Store, but we put in our sort of Spot Webinar Quick Connect ID, put in the username and put in the password and click Next. This then connects us up. We want a sync task rather than a backup task. And then we're going to enable on-demand sync and specify our location. And we're happy with that. This is just giving us a sort of brief overview of what Drive has available and how it will work. And there you go, we have access to our files straight away. Now you'll notice that there's a cloud symbol on all of them currently. So if I open up this screenshot, which I actually used for this webinar, so obviously it's just a generic screenshot, but you'll now see that there's no cloud icon next to this, meaning that the file is local. So I now have a local copy of that file. This will of course sync back, but it just means that there's a file locally. Now within Drive, so that's available within the App Store on iOS. I can sort of open up Drive, and then we'll put in our Quick Connect ID again. So very similar to on Mac, but there's just a few differences. So we'll log in, and then it will request our username and password rather than sort of all being at the same time. So we'll put that in. So put my username in. We'll put the password in again, and then we will hit sign in. And there we go. It's logging us into Spot Webinar. So it's the exact same files we got through the Files app on iPhone, but it's just a nicer, easier way to manage it all, because then we can see everything and use it within there too. Now I want to talk about an example of where Drive has been quite handy and where Mac is used with Synology to sort of give you a nice overview of everything. And I'm going to introduce you to Martin Kosvig. He's a freelance photographer based in Freiburg in Germany, and he came up against a few issues. Now, the first one was the improvement in technology. So cameras getting better, recording and taking photos in sort of a higher resolution, therefore requires larger storage. And then obviously the company that he was using before had large but a very limited storage, and it also required a high monthly cost. So not quite fit for what he needed. And then his backup solution was via USB. So as soon as the USB limit is hit, that's him done. So there's no sort of scalable solution for that backup. I mean, he has to have multiple USB drives to back up to. And should he not remember which backup he needs, then he's going to have a few issues. So that's then when Martin came to Synology. He obviously purchased a Synology NAS, and he accesses his data through various sort of applications. So Drive, as we mentioned, is a nice easy way for him to access his files while he's out and about. It can also be used at home as well, but it's perfect when you're out and about. He uses Synology Photos, so that allows him to manage his photos. There's some great features in there that can recognize faces and pets and other things like that. And then he uses Audio Station just for sort of listening to music, I assume probably while he's editing photos and things like that. But he also has his Mac, and yes, he does use Time Machine at this point in time when this case study was created. I'm sure he has converted to active backup business now, but we'll cover that a bit later on. But as I said before, Time Machine, you can use the NAS as the repository for that. And just to be sure and safe, he then uses Hyper Backup and backs that data up that's on the NAS to the cloud, making sure that his laptop's in 321, but obviously his drive data is then backed up to the cloud and is nice and safe. Now, the advantage of Drive, you get sort of Synology Office too, and it's at no extra cost. So Office would allow him to sort of collaborate on plans, maybe with his colleagues. So they can do that in real time if sort of they're both connecting to the NAS. And then say he's working with someone, he's pulled another photographer in for a shoot, and he's looking to collaborate with them on maybe a sort of time scale and a schedule, but they're on Windows, and they've sent him a Microsoft Excel document. He can then convert that document into a Synology Sheets document, work on it, convert it back to an Excel doc, and send it back off. So he can then sort of easily work with any sort of Windows user or anyone that's using a Microsoft format without the need to purchase any sort of licenses for anything else. So we covered off the integration with the Apple ecosystem and how you can turn your NAS into your own private cloud. Now let's have a look at how we can protect that important data that you're storing on your Mac. So no, without doubt, we've already spoken about Time Machine already, and I'm sure you're quite comfortable with that if you're a Mac user. And Time Machine was a good option until Apple advised that they were no longer going to provide software updates. So it does leave you a little bit vulnerable. Whereas Active Backup for Business, it's part of DSM. DSM is available on every system in the same way. So there'll be continuous software updates for Active Backup for Business. It also requires external storage. So Time Machine needs somewhere to store that. If you store it locally and your Mac dies, then well, everything's gone anyway. Kind of a little bit cheeky, but the Active Backup for Business is aligned with the storage. So you're buying the storage anyway, and you get Active Backup for Business for free. On top of that, just needs to be downloaded from the package center. So it's a little bit simpler in terms of it's already available. And then backup apps. So yeah, Time Machine will only back up apps, music, photos, and documents. So anything that's installed via the macOS installation won't be backed up. Whereas Active Backup for Business will do a full system backup, meaning that you can back up everything, restore anything, and then should you need to, you can do then a full bare metal restore to your Mac. And then kind of a equivalent across both, but they are both license free. So essentially you're not having to pay for anything with Active Backup for Business other than the hardware that's going to be used on. But you're going to need that anyway if you want a good repository for your Time Machine backup. So you might as well use Active Backup for Business, and it gives you a full system backup. Now, Active Backup for Business is not just business. There's also Google Workspace, and there's Microsoft 365. And it also provides you a nice, easy to use recovery portal, which I will demo a little bit shortly. But it's not just for Mac. It's available on Windows for general servers and sort of file servers, virtual machines. So should you need to back up any virtual machines, Active Backup for Business can do that for you. You have the option to then, if you're sort of really in a stuck in a tough position, and your virtual machine goes down or your blade goes down, you have the option to then run that virtual machine within Virtual Machine Manager on the NAS. So maybe not quite as powerful as it would be on the blade, but you'll have a server up and running, and people then obviously can access that. And as we mentioned, Google Workspace and Microsoft 365 will also be covered by Active Backup for the relevant, obviously, Google Workspace and Microsoft 365. So how it works on a Mac. So here we are protecting our Mac with Active Backup for Business. So we went into Package Center, and Active Backup for Business is the first one available, but I've already installed that onto the NAS here. So we'll open that up, and then we will go to PC and Mac, because obviously we're looking to back up a Mac. And we'll click on macOS, and we'll click Add Device. Now it's just checking that we're okay with that certificate, and we are, because it's one for Active Backup for Business. So we'll click OK on that. And then we have the option here to download the installer for sort of our Mac. But again, I've done that already. I have that open. So yeah, that's available on DSM to install. And the same as before, we'll put in our IP address, because for Active Backup for Business, it does need to be on the local network. We'll put in username, password, and then we'll connect to the NAS. Now, what's this doing is pushing our sort of Mac data to our NAS, and we're just going to proceed and OK on this. It's just the same certificate notification we got, but on DSM. So then it will push our data to Active Backup for Business, and there you go. So it's sort of connected us up, just saying, yep, we're happy to back up daily, which we are. So I've hit OK on that, and then we'll populate behind. As you can see in active backup for business, we now have sort of our Mac there ready to go, and then I'm going to run a backup. So it's obviously not backed up yet, but we'll run a backup, and then effectively we'll come back to this screen. So we actually had 2 backups run, because when I run the first backup, and then we had one run overnight as well, which probably allows us to give you a better overview of the recovery portal anyway. But if I go into sort of my desktop and I delete this screenshot image, there we go. So just move that to the bin. So we've now effectively lost that file. Well, not completely, because I'm just going to make sure that it's deleted from the trash bin as well, just to be sure that it's actually gone off the Mac and that we are restoring it from our NAS. So I'm going to empty that, and we're going to get rid of it. So there we go. So now it's definitely gone from our Mac, and there's no real easy way to now recover that, except for Active Backup for Business. So we load up Active Backup for Business, went to our recovery portal. This then loads in the web page, which is obviously on our NAS. So now we just have to dig down, find where our file was located. So within users, within Thomas, and then on our desktop. And we'll see that there is our screenshot. And we have, if you look right at the bottom, there are 2 points in time where we can restore from. So the one that I did manually, and then the one that ran on the schedule. So if we go to the one that I ran manually, click restore, we then have the option to either restore to the same path or to a different one. I'm just going to keep it with the same path. So we'll click OK on that. And then if I bring back up Finder, we'll actually see it just populate back up on our desktop. And that's our sort of file restored from Active Backup for Business, which is located on the NAS. So it keeps anything that you're using on your Mac nice and safe, stored on the NAS. And then, of course, as Martin did in our case study, he then backed that up to C2 Cloud as well, just to make sure that even the NAS was safe, even if that were to go down. So now, maybe you've seen Active Backup for Business, and you sort of what Martin Cosfig is doing with backup to cloud, and thinking it looks great. You're quite happy with it, but maybe you want to back up to cloud directly and kind of not have to have any hardware on site. But that's when you have C2 Backup for Business. So this is a cloud-based backup service. It doesn't require a VPN, and it doesn't just back up your Mac, but it will back up a Windows PC, sort of general and sort of file servers as well. And currently it'll also do Microsoft 365. So you have that option should you maybe not want a NAS on site. And then there's one more cloud-based solution I want to look at before we come to the end, this being C2 Identity. Now, this is a cloud-based identity and access management solution. So say, for example, you have a Windows AD server and are running a mixture of Mac and Windows devices. Now, I've no doubt that the Windows devices will behave. They generally do, from my experience when I worked in support at a computer center. But for anyone that has ever had to manage a Mac on a Windows network, knows it's rather hard to kind of make them play ball. This is where C2 identity comes in. It sort of centralizes those identities across all resources. I'm sure you're thinking that's great, but a cloud-based authentication service sounds a little bit risky. What if we were to lose connection to the internet? How do you then authenticate through that? Well, we have a solution for this too. That's where you can utilize a Synology NAS as an LDAP edge server, meaning you can still authenticate even if you were to go offline. Now, unfortunately, that is everything I have for you today, but I do want to make sure you remember these 3 key points, and that's Synology's seamless integration across the whole of the Apple ecosystem. So that being with Mac, iOS, watchOS, and there are a few applications that are on Apple TV. And then obviously you should then look at using Synology Drive, allowing you to sort of provide access to your files anywhere, anytime. So even if you're out and about, you can then still access your files. Maybe you're showing things off with a customer, and you want them to be able to see your photos or videos, for example. You can then just connect back via your phone, or if you've got your Mac with you, do that. And the last thing, which is probably the most important thing, is protecting your data, specifically through active backup for business. Because although you have Time Machine, say in a few months' time, a year's time, when that support is no longer there, you may be struggling. You might have a few issues, especially considering you're going to want some external storage to put that on anyway. You might as well then buy a Synology NAS, use Active Backup for Business, and have the option to do a full bare metal restore, meaning everything is protected on your Mac.